Have you ever heard of a king so controversial, so despised, that his own people tried to pretend he never even existed? We're not just talking about being forgotten by time. We're talking about a systematic, deliberate campaign to erase him from history. For almost 3,000 years, he was a ghost. Let's dive into the story of the pharaoh they tried to bury forever.
So what on earth could a pharaoh, a literal god on earth, do to deserve that? What kind of crime could be so terrible that the only answer was to chisel his name off of every monument and strike him from every record? That's the huge mystery we're going to unpack right now.
And for a long, long time, it worked. He was gone. But thanks to modern archaeology, the ghost is back. We're going to piece together the clues to tell the incredible story of his rise, his absolutely radical reign, and his spectacular fall from grace.
Okay, so how do you actually make a pharaoh disappear? This wasn't just a case of, oops, we forgot to write him down. No, this was an active, official, and ruthless campaign of destruction.
The Romans actually had a fancy Latin term for this, damnatio memoriae, the condemnation of memory. But let's be real, the Egyptians were the masters of this thousands of years earlier. See, for them, the idea was simple and terrifying. If you destroy a person's name and their image, you destroy their soul in the afterlife. It was, quite literally, the ultimate punishment.
And they were thorough. I mean, they went to every temple and painstakingly hammered his name out of the royal cartouches. The grand city and the temples he built for his new god, they were dismantled stone by stone. And get this, those stones were then used as cheap filler material to build new structures for the very gods he tried to get rid of. But the final nail in the coffin, in the official lists of kings, they just skipped him. It goes from his father straight to his successor, like his entire 17-year reign was just a bad dream.
So, we know how they erased him, but the big question is why? Who was this man, and what did he do that was so unforgivable? Well, it all goes back to a religious revolution that shook the foundations of ancient Egypt.
Akhenaten, who was actually born Amenhotep IV, basically took a four-step sledgehammer to Egyptian tradition. First, he changed his name, which was a huge slap in the face to the most powerful god, Amun. Second, he declared that Egypt's hundreds of gods were all fakes. There was only one true god, the Aten, the physical disk of the sun. Third, he abandoned Thebes, the religious capital of the empire for centuries. And finally, he built a brand new capital city from scratch out in the desert and dedicated it entirely to his new god.
You have to understand what a mind-blowing shift this was. For millennia, Egyptian religion was this complex web of hundreds of gods with animal heads and human bodies, worshipped in dark, secret temples only priests could enter. The Aten was the complete opposite. It was a universal god, visible to everyone, everywhere, just by looking up. And it wasn't a person or an animal. It was this abstract force, a disk of light whose rays ended in hands that literally reached down to give life to the world.
Akhenaten didn't just stop with religion. Oh no, he changed how reality itself was portrayed. His revolution had a very unique and, frankly, very strange look. He turned art into his personal propaganda machine. For over 1,000 years, Egyptian art had a strict rulebook. Pharaohs were always shown as these perfect, muscular, ageless gods. Akhenaten took that rulebook and lit it on fire. Suddenly, art becomes fluid, emotional, and distorted. The pharaoh himself is shown with this bizarrely long skull, a potbelly, and wide feminine hips. And instead of those stiff, formal poses, you see these shockingly intimate family moments, like Akhenaten and his wife Nefertiti kissing their daughters. It was unheard of.
So you're probably looking at this thinking, what was going on with this guy? Did he have some kind of genetic disorder? And for a long time, scholars thought maybe he did. But the thinking today is that this was all a theological statement. His god, the Aten, was called the mother and father of all creation. So to drive the point home, Akhenaten had himself depicted with both male and female characteristics to literally embody the dual nature of his one true god.
A beautiful new god, a city of light, intimate family portraits. It all sounds pretty visionary, doesn't it? But there was a brutal, dark side to this utopia, and it was paid for by the blood, sweat, and tears of the common people.
He wrote this absolutely beautiful poetry, like this line from his famous hymn. It positions him as the sole connection to God, the only person in the entire world who truly understands the divine. It's a powerful, moving idea.
But while he was writing poetry, thousands of people were paying for his divine vision with their lives. Building a massive capital city in the middle of the desert in just a few years required a huge, overworked, and starving labor force.
And we know this for a fact because archaeologists have excavated the cemeteries of the workers. The skeletons tell a horrifying story. The date is just shocking. We're talking about a workforce where more than 3/4 of the adults had severe arthritis from backbreaking labor. 2/3 of them had at least one broken bone from accidents on the job. And the children's skeletons show their growth was stunted from chronic malnourishment.
I mean, just look at these numbers. The scale of the suffering is almost impossible to imagine. Can you picture a city today where 75% of the adult population is crippled by work and 67% have suffered major fractures? For them, this city wasn't a horizon of light. It was a worksite of immense brutality. A revolution built on that much suffering just couldn't last. It was a house of cards. And the second Akhenaten died, the whole experiment began to unravel, and the old ways came roaring back with a vengeance.
The years after his death were pure chaos. We've got a couple of mysterious, short-lived rulers, one of whom was probably his wife Nefertiti ruling as a female king. Then, the boy king Tutankhamun takes the throne. He immediately abandons his father's city, changes his own name from Tutankhaten to Tutankhamun, and brings back all the old gods. But the man who really started the official erasure campaign was a general named Horemheb, who made it his mission to wipe the Heretic King from memory.
So after all that, what are we supposed to make of this guy? He was erased, but his ideas, somehow, they refused to die completely. And the debate over who he really was, it still rages today. So, who was he? A visionary prophet? Maybe the world's first true monotheist, whose ideas might have even influenced the Bible? A brave artist who broke free from centuries of tradition? Or was he a fanatic despot, an authoritarian, whose obsession with his god led to the suffering of his people and the neglect of his empire? The crazy thing is, the evidence supports both sides of the argument. His ideas were so powerful that even Sigmund Freud weighed in. He put forward this wild theory that Moses wasn't actually a Hebrew, but an Egyptian priest of the Aten, who took Akhenaten's religion and led its followers out of Egypt. Now, there's absolutely no archaeological proof for this, but it just goes to show you how profoundly this ancient revolution has captured the modern imagination.
And that really brings us to the final, fascinating question. Akhenaten's revolution failed, spectacularly. He was erased, his god was abandoned, his city was left to the sand, and yet, here we are, thousands of years later, still talking about him and his radical vision of a single, universal God. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Can an idea be so powerful that even a failed revolution can end up changing the world?